Welcome to the Star Tribune. I'm reporter Pam Lawaji, here to talk about a new wave of designer synthetic drugs that is sweeping through the streets of America. They were virtually unknown in early 2010, but now, several months later, state and local governments are scrambling to ban the substances. They are man-made stimulants and synthetic marijuana that have been packaged and sold as bath salts, herbal incense, and research chemicals. These drugs are earning reputations for inducing bizarre behavior and severe physical reactions. They've been linked or suspected in more than 20 deaths nationwide. Joining me today is Dan Morin, Assistant Special Agent in charge of the DEA's Minneapolis office, and Cody Weiberg, Executive Director of the Minnesota Board of Pharmacy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having us.
Cody, synthetic drugs have sort of a Russian roulette aspect to them. Can you talk about that?
Yes, I think that's a very apt analogy. When you play Russian roulette, you have a gun with 6 chambers in it, bullets in one of them. You can pull the trigger several times and nothing happens, but one time you're going to pull the trigger and you're going to die. Same thing that can happen with these drugs. Even though you're using the same product with the same name and the same packaging, you don't know what's in there because the manufacturers have no quality control. They're not doing manufacturing to FDA standards, and they're sometimes not even putting the same drug in. So you can use the same product 4 or 5 times, have nothing happen to you. The last time you use it could be when you die.
Both of you have seen some of the bizarre effects that come up with these drugs, bizarre and dangerous effects. Talk a little bit about what's been out there.
Well, all of the drugs, even the synthetic cannabinoids, which a lot of people mistakenly think are no worse than marijuana, can have quite severe effects body-wide. There have been reports of seizures, of hallucinations and delusions, very aggressive behavior, irregular heart rates, things like vomiting and difficulty breathing. There was a 14-year-old down in Hastings who ended up in a coma after using a synthetic cannabinoid one time, ended up in a coma with very dangerously low levels of potassium, which affects your heart rate and your heart rhythm. And he was lucky he didn't have cardiac arrest.
You know, there's no shortage of stories across the United States. You know, from a national perspective, you know, certainly there's been violent outbursts in emergency rooms, people breaking through restraining gurneys and belts, trying to assault the doctors, the very people trying to help them. Certainly acts of self-mutilation. A woman in West Virginia who believed that she, after taking bath salts, that there was something underneath her skin, mutilated herself literally to death. Another man that was in Indiana climbed a flagpole adjacent to a highway and jumped off into incoming traffic. You know, these are all very bizarre acts by people that are taking these synthetic drugs.
We know that synthetics are popular partly because they don't show up on standard drug tests, and also because they're so widely available. Dan, maybe you can talk a bit about how much the internet plays a role in that.
Well, I think the internet rapidly accelerated the flow of information on these drugs. What used to take years to cross the United States, you know, methamphetamine and some of the other designer drugs as they came across, now occurs in a matter of months, if not less, in a matter of weeks.
How has the internet in general changed the business of recreational drugs?
Well, I think it's increased both supply and demand. On the demand side, as Dan was mentioning, a lot of youth, a lot of young adults use social media. So when they are seeing Twitter feeds and they're seeing YouTube videos of other people their age using these drugs, I think they are more likely to use them themselves. On the supply side, you can order drugs from anywhere. Even if a site says that this is an American site and identifies an address, that doesn't mean that these products are coming from this country. We know they're coming from other countries, China, India, Russia. You know, you've got a lot more potential for a lot more people supplying the product.
What challenges do lawmakers have and law enforcement and the justice system have in trying to get around all this?
Well, there's certainly significant challenges with this class of drugs, primarily because they're chemists abroad that can change just minute details molecularly about these drugs and alter the course of how they're interpreted under the legal process. DEA takes this very seriously, which is one of the reasons why we are placing a temporary order to ban, or at least schedule rather, 3 of the most predominant chemicals that we're seeing in the bath salts today, which is methadone, methylone, and then MDPV. it's for the human, for the public safety rather, that these are going to be placed on there to stop the imminent threat being placed by these dangerous chemicals.
You also have the law enforcement side. A lot of these are now criminal acts. Can we arrest our way out of this problem, though, with synthetics when they keep changing things?
I don't know that we'll ever arrest ourselves out of this. I mean, certainly the law enforcement component is a vital piece that needs to remain. Placing these items on the Emergency Schedule Act is certainly one thing that will change the manufacturer's process to try to avoid rather the new laws in the legal system that they'll have to overcome. Certainly, the other aspect is through education and prevention. Cody and I think, share the very same opinion on this, that there has to be treatment, there has to be education, and it really starts at home. Having the parents let their children know that it may look legal on the internet and it may look like it's safe. That doesn't mean that it's either. What it does mean is that there's some people who are selling a drug that they don't know what they're selling for pure profit.
Besides talking to your own kids, what can parents do to look for warning signs?
I think check the internet. See which sites their children are visiting. If they see a suspect package arrive in the mail citing that it's plant food or that it's a bath salt, you need to recognize that these are not legitimate products. A legitimate product of bath salt can be purchased at a very inexpensive rate in a Bed Bath & Beyond, for instance, $15 for a 23-ounce container. The packages that are being sold, 200 milligrams at $20 a packet, equates to about a $64,000 bottle of bath salts. People need to recognize that that doesn't make sense.
Well, this is certainly an important topic that's been emerging very quickly. Thanks for joining us, gentlemen. For information, see the Star Tribune stories in print or go online at startribune.com/lethaldose.